First DMT trip, and it wasn't a good one. I've been sitting here in a state of lingering shock, trying to piece together what happened to me during my very first DMT trip last night. I'm still reeling with confusion and disorientation, and I can't quite figure out how to get my mind back into a normal groove. Everything feels foggy, as though a thick curtain fell over my perception of the world, and it's only partly been lifted since. I'm writing all this down because I need some semblance of structure to make sense of the experience. If I don't try to articulate it, I fear I'll keep drifting in a haze for who knows how long. I should clarify, the trip in question was with DMT, not LSD. I realize I casually referred to LSD or my LSD trip, but I was reusing bits of text from the DMT subreddit where I posted initially. So I'm sorry if there was confusion. This entire event was a DMT trip, my biggest, boldest excursion into psychedelics so far, and I regret that I did it while my life was in such a messy, emotional state. In short, I was already feeling depressed. I'm dealing with serious problems with my girlfriend and might be on the verge of getting fired from my job. It's not the best frame of mind to bring into a major psychedelic journey. I knew that rationally, but I guess I let my curiosity or impulsiveness override my caution. Before I get into the exact happenings of the trip, I'd like to give some background on my history with substances. If that bores you, feel free to skim until you see the line of XES below. Anyway, for most of my life, I was practically straight edge. I only tried weed once at 13, once at 15, and then not again until I was in my early 20s. Didn't do it often, just a few times. I didn't really get into drinking or any other substances either. Then, in my mid-20s, I experimented with mushrooms. The first time was with an ex of mine who was also a roommate and a friend. That outing was actually quite pleasant. Typical mushroom visuals, swirl patterns, some introspective talk, etc. The second time on mushrooms, I was with two friends visiting from Oklahoma. We all sat around the living room, and everything turned into a crazy topography of rolling hills. For whatever reason, my mind conjured images reminiscent of the old game space station Silicon Valley, which made me giggle uncontrollably. But here's the kicker. During that second shroom trip, I began to realize the other two weren't as far gone as I was. They seemed to hold it together, while I got more paranoid and started spiraling. I retreated into the bathroom to get a grip, only to be startled by the nicotine stains on the walls that my high brain mistook for urine. That unsettled me, so I hopped into the bathtub, fully clothed, trying to calm down. I kept peeing because of how anxious I was, and there was a cup in the tub for bathing, so at moments, I'd open my eyes and see the pee, interpreted as spilled beer, which I abhor, and sink deeper into this dread that I'd violated some moral code. It was a rough time. My mind got stuck in these loops of guilt and shame. Ultimately, I spent about 5 hours in there, feeling as though it stretched into months, wanting at times to die. I have a high baseline of suicidal ideation, so that was a big trigger. I eventually came out of it with some sense of having confronted a few issues, but it was definitely not a wholly positive experience. In subsequent uses, mushrooms were friendlier to me. Maybe because I had a trip sitter or a calmer environment. I tried them in small doses. Another time I took them with a female friend, and we ended up having sex, which felt bizarre yet strangely intimate. Then I tried LSD with a girlfriend. We had an intense session of lovemaking that felt like our bodies melded together. We even took a dip in a river, which was magical. After that, my most recent girlfriend and I did LSD a couple times. On one occasion, we took a moderate dose and had a lovely time. On another weekend, we each took 2 tabs and I basically melted, losing most sense of self, then came out of it in a wave of euphoria. There was also a lot of sexual exploration involved. That's kind of how we bonded. Through these psychedelic journeys, we'd share intimate experiences that made us feel closer. Anyway, skip forward to the present. My girlfriend and I are on shaky ground for reasons that are partly her issues, partly mine. Also, I messed up at work, sending some meme to a company group chat by accident. They suspended me, all of which weighed heavily on me. My mood was shot. Then this ex-coworker, Faith, who's also dabbled in psychedelics, suggested we try DMT. She'd wanted to do it with me and my girlfriend, but my girlfriend was busy, and not exactly keen on me socializing with Faith, who was an ex of some sort. Though it's complicated, we decided to do it anyway, just the two of us, at my place. I realize how questionable that is, but I was eager for a mental escape, I guess. We start smoking weed, chatting about random stuff like Final Fantasy, just vibing. Faith suggests we start with her hitting the DMT first, so I can see how she reacts. She takes a couple hits, eyes open the entire time, experiences some mild visuals for about 2 minutes. Then she's back. She describes a short trip, meeting friendly entities. Great. This lulled me into thinking. I guess it's not that big a deal. I tried mushrooms and LSD. So how different could it be? It was a world of difference. Here's how it played out for me. I lie down on my bed, propped up with a pillow, facing the door of my tiny house. Faith loads a pipe with weed and some DMT. I take a couple big puffs, feel a bit floaty, but not much else. She says maybe we need a purer dose. So then she loads a pipe with pure DMT crystals. No weed filler. I manage 2 big hits. Suddenly, I sense reality warping. That characteristic wave of intensity. I figure we're good, but Faith suggests I do one more. I do it. And I begin shooting toward this swirling fractal gateway in my mind's eye. The feeling is powerful, like I'm physically rocketing forward. Just as I'm about to exhale, she encourages me to go deeper, so I muster the strength, do a final massive inhalation, and that's when my entire being leaves my body. I'm in some ethereal dimension, maybe the DMT space people talk about. Everything is bursting with color, fractals that spin in neon arrays. I see a ring of red fractal geometry that I interpret as a gate, sort of like a membrane I can pass through. Then, in a bizarre flash, I come back enough to sense my actual room. I realize I can still hold the pipe if I want to, but I let go, and my eyes roll back. I dissolve into that swirling fractal environment again, passing beyond the red ring. I see inhuman shapes, shifting in kaleidoscopic patterns. They morph too fast to label. Suddenly I catch sight of a being with a bubble-like head, bluish in color. It stands or floats, not interacting with me, almost as if it's an observer. Then I drift into another zone, maybe a corridor, or it could be an infinite plane. It's that intangible. The fractals form architecture out of pure light. My entire sense of time or identity is gone. This might have lasted seconds or hours. I can't differentiate. At some point, I encounter what seems like a 2-dimensional figure. It's almost cartoonish, bouncing around as though in a short, choppy animation. It has the form of a fox with 3 faces in one head. That's the best I can describe it. It's a single fox head, elongated with multiple snouts or muzzle lines branching off, each featuring eyes on the side. Its eyes are yellow, maybe reptilian or fish-like. The figure is wearing something like a robe and a tall, ornate hat, reminiscent of a bishop's mitre. In one paw it holds a staff. The other paw is raised in a posture reminiscent of Baphomet's symbolic hand gesture. Though I'm not 100% sure, I'm awestruck. The LSD psilocybin experiences I've had never conjured something so bizarre and so vividly distinct. This fox entity seems aware of me. I sense intelligence in it, an intangible vibe that says, "I see you." I ask if it's God. It nods in affirmation, more than once, like it's letting me know that yes, it is indeed a divine presence. Or maybe it's messing with me, but in the moment, I believe it. My mind reels. Is this what people call the DMT, machine elf, or an entity? Moments later, I sense my bodily presence again. My vantage point returns briefly. I realize I'm physically lying on the bed, face possibly in Faith's lap. Then I slip back into the dimension again. This time, everything is a black void, and I'm a wireframe figure. I see no environment around me, just emptiness. Wind howls in my ears, or so I think, though it could be the echo of my own breath. Then a jester's face looms out of the darkness, a deep red visage with a huge grin, no pupils, mocking me silently. The face flickers away. I'm left spinning, drifting in the dark. I recall feeling that time had no meaning, that I might remain in this space for eternity, or vanish. When I finally surface to normal consciousness, I'm disoriented and shaky. Faith is watching me with concern, telling me it's okay, that I'm just in the come down. But I keep babbling about reality not existing, about how everything's a sham, about how I can't piece together who or what I am. Over the course of maybe an hour or two, I have episodes of near panic. I ask Faith if she's angry at me, if she's real, if I can ever truly come back to normal. The boundaries of real life feel tenuous. Eventually I start to anchor myself, but the fear that I've forever shattered my understanding of reality lingers. That night after Faith left, I tried reading about other people's DMT experiences, hoping for some reassurance. I found a story about someone encountering a fox goddess, and it triggered a wave of recognition. I also stumbled across mention of a fox entity with 3 snouts, or so the snippet read, though the actual link was some incomplete reference that led nowhere. There's apparently mention of a jester archetype that many DMT explorers see. It was all too much, swirling in my mind. I ended up feeling both validated, like I wasn't alone in meeting these bizarre characters, and unsettled, because I realized how commonly people talk about meeting alien or godlike beings, jesters or tricksters in DMT space. So my experience was neither unique nor comforting. Now the day after, I'm left with a soup of emotions. Fear, confusion, awe, disappointment. In one sense, I feel I shouldn't have done DMT while depressed. On the other, part of me wonders if this is what DMT does. It tears apart your illusions, for better or worse. My biggest concern is that I'm still out of alignment. I keep glancing around my room, expecting the walls to ripple, or expecting to see that fox pope reappear in a corner. If I talk to my girlfriend about it, she might freak out or worry about my mental stability, especially since we're already rocky. My job situation is also uncertain, which adds to the stress. It's not the best time to have a cosmic meltdown. I read that many say, wait until you're stable and in a good set and setting, which I obviously ignored, and it bit me in the ass. Another part of me is morbidly fascinated. Did I glimpse a higher plane? Did I meet a real entity? Or was it purely my subconscious? The question might not matter. The experience felt real enough that my emotions and psyche were profoundly rattled. I haven't eaten much since it happened, and I keep pacing, checking the door, then sitting down. My reflection in the mirror looks alien. It's reminiscent of that post-psychedelic come down where you can't be sure you're truly. The fact that I typed all this out is an attempt to ground myself, to reassert that yes, I'm still here in the physical realm. If you're reading this, it means I managed to shape these words into coherence. So maybe I'm more grounded than I think. On reflection, the sexual encounters I had on LSD or mushrooms feel tame in comparison. DMT's approach was more cosmic, more intense, and I was unprepared for the measureless weirdness. Part of me is thankful I didn't see anything truly horrifying, though that jester face was borderline. The fox entity calling itself God was also unnerving, but it didn't feel malevolent, just otherworldly. Then there's the question. Why a fox with 3 faces? Is it referencing some triple deity motif? Or was that just random chaos? Hard to say. At this stage, I suspect I won't be rushing into a second DMT experience anytime soon. Maybe if I get my life more stable. If I fix things with my girlfriend or find a new job. Maybe then. But in the immediate future, I'd like to recover from this mental blow. The next time I do venture back, I'd want a calmer headspace, a trip sitter I absolutely trust, maybe even a more ritualistic approach. Because as fascinating as it was, I'm not eager to revisit that sense of total reality-shattering confusion. It's different from LSD or mushrooms, where I usually have at least a tenuous sense of I'm me. And I'm here. DMT pulled me out of existence so forcefully, it left me floundering. I guess that's the gist of my story. It was supposed to be a simple, maybe enlightening time, but it ended up flipping me inside out in ways I didn't expect. I'm hoping that by sharing it, writing it down in detail, will lighten the burden a bit. Part of me wonders if I'll glean some deeper lesson from this once the shock wears off. But for now, I'm mostly just rattled. That's it. My first big DMT trip. A violent, erotic, cosmic swirl of gate-crashing fractals, a fox god entity, a mocking jester, and me left in the aftermath, trying to piece my psyche back together.